Hey everyone, I am doing a polymer clay button tutorial today, and I just thought I'd share my process with you. This is just, I'm using Sculpey 3 in this case, but I prefer to use a mix of Sculpey 3 and Primo. But I am doing a pokeball button for a game case that I made for my husband. So here I'm rolling out black polymer clay pretty thin, and I'm using one of my crimper cutters to get a nice even circle. I think this was about 1 inch in diameter. And now I'm picking it up and smoothing out the edges so that like the harsh cut end doesn't, it just kind of looks a little unnatural, so it helps even things out. And then with a pokeball, there's also a white layer. So I am rolling out white clay, again it's Sculpey 3, to super thin. The 2 circles in the back on my little workstation ended up being too thick, so I'm re-rolling it here to make it nice and thin, since it will stack on top of the black clay. I'm using like a 3/4 inch, and I can't remember what the smaller one was, but definitely all 3 are different diameters so that I can make a nice layer effect when they're all on top of each other. I did want to make sure my button was a little bit thicker so that it wouldn't snap when it's being used. So the black is a bit thicker than I probably would have usually done, and then I made the white layers pretty thin, since again, it didn't really matter if my black was thick enough. So smoothing out the edges, stacking the first white layer of clay, and then smoothing out the edges on the smaller middle part of the button, and then I'll be stacking that on top too, making sure it's kind of evenly placed in the center. And I give a good press just to make sure everything's adhered, and then it is time to make the buttonholes. I'm using a dotting tool, and I decided to go with the 4-hole method just because I like to be able to, when I'm sewing it on, I feel like it evens out the tension of the string a little bit more. So I first marked where I kind of thought I wanted the holes to be, and now I'm going in with my sorry, my hand's in the way, I'm right-handed. My ball pointing tool to really start making that hole deeper throughout the entire thickness of the button. And you have to be careful doing this so that you don't smash the clay, and that you're also not making weird things happen with the hole, since clay likes to be pushed in the direction that it's going in. I'm going from the front and the back so that I don't have like the raised edge that happens when you're making an indent in clay. It's to try and even it out, so hopefully it's fairly even on the top and the bottom. And it just helps make sure the hole is even too. You also want to make sure the buttonhole is big enough for the needle you're going to be used to sew it. So I tested that previously. And then I'm doing a final clean down with some rubbing alcohol to make sure there's no leftover dust. And then once it's baked, I ended up adding a layer of resin to make it shiny. And now I'm going to be attaching it to my pokeball case. And I'm just using regular sewing thread and a needle, and I left a tail in the back that I'll tie off at the end, and I pretty much sew the crap out of this button. I think I did 2 or 3 passes in each direction, and I went into, I think I started with crisscrossing with the holes, and then I also went in like a square shape. When you see the photo, hopefully it'll make sense what I did, but I just want to make sure it's nice and snug and reinforced. I also like to double up my thread when I cut it, so I'll cut like maybe an arm's length or so of thread and then fold it in half so it has a little bit more strength. It didn't focus too well, and I apologize. I think this is the clip where it didn't refocus. So I snipped the ends and now I'm tying it together and it's out of focus. But that is what I'm doing. The first tail that I left and the ending tail of my thread. I tied it many times and then I snipped off the extras. And now I have the case. This is my husband's handheld device that I made the case for, and I just wanted to show that the button does indeed work. It's a little finicky, but that's just how I do my buttons. And it works pretty well, and it's a custom button. So, oh, there you can see how the thread is.